So we are going to be looking at, for the first little bit, determining the rate of change. Remember, rate of change is the difference between y's divided by the difference between x's. So let's take this first equation. When x is 0, what was y? Not 2. 0. Could you plug in 0? Then you're going to be looking at the next one and seeing, okay, at f of 2, what is the y? Plug it in 2. And that gives you your y value for both of those. So now you have your slope formula. y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So my y2 is the second one. And so it was 1 minus my y1, which was 0. x1, or x2 minus x1 is going to be what I plugged in, so 2 minus 0. So my slope is 1/2. So let's look at this next one. Same idea. We're going to plug in those two values. So g of 0, 3 times 0 squared. Well, 0 squared is 0 times 3, which is 0. And then we're going to find f of 2. Where's my f? G of 2, which is 3 times 2 squared. What's 2 squared?
4.
So 3 times 4, which is
12.
and so now we can find our slope, y2 minus y1, so 12 minus 0 divided by what we plugged in, 2 minus 0. So our average slope was 6. Let's look at the top one, or the bottom one. So h of 0. I'm plugging in a 0. What is 2 to the 0 power? What's anything to the 0 power?
1.
It's 1. And h of 2 means I have 2 to the second power, which is 4. Our slope is 4 minus 1 divided by 2 minus 0. So 3 divided by 2. Can that simplify any further? The answer is no. So that's your slope. So we're looking at average rate of change. That's going to be looking over an interval and finding the rate of change in that section. But as we get into calculus, you're actually going to go towards where you can find the instantaneous rate of change. What is the rate of change at that point? The closer those two numbers get together that we're looking at it at, the closer we are to finding the instantaneous rate of change. So play as our work is the next example. And we're looking at a video game company from its original business plan through the first few years of business. I want you as your table to look at where do you think each of these letters go in what order? So what is the first thing that you think happened out of all of these? See, what's C saying? Open his doors for the first time. You think it's the first thing that happened? Anybody have any other opinions? That's correct. Because it's when time was going to start. So C is the first thing that happens. The next thing, what do you think is the next thing that happens? What is E?
Where it breaks even, where it goes above the X,
Okay.
or it's on the X.
So the first break even point you think is there?
Yes.
Is there another point where the company is breaking even?
Yes.
There. Technically, they're not having a profit or a loss. And where's another spot that it's breaking even?
I can't say.
Right there. All the y-intercepts.
Where's your mouse?
Oh, is my mouse not showing up?
No.
Those three locations are break-even points. All the x-intercepts. We're not having a profit or a loss. So, a highly anticipated game, Zephyr Zenith 2, is released. Where do you think that might be?
After the second E.
After the second E? After here? Or that's the, right down here? I had it here. Oops,
That's what I meant.
okay, that one.
Yes.
I thought it might be. Oops, I forgot to do the first one. So when do you think they might be trying to meet with an accountant?
When you're going down.
At the very bottom?
Mm-hmm.
They're going, okay, I need help. Things are not going well. The company reaches its first short-term sales goal just before the holiday season ends. When the holiday season ends, what do you think is happening to their profits afterwards?
Sale goes down.
It goes down. So where do you think it is?
On that, towards the, going down towards the A.
I actually put it up here at the top because at that first season, we're having that sales and then we're going to drop off. So the board members get in a heated debate over the next move the company should make. Where do you think it's going to happen? Is that happening as we're going up, do you think? So we know it's not happening in either of the upward slopes. It's going to happen somewhere, and I guess somewhere down here. Game designer is fired after 2 game releases. Leisurely Sunday Drive and Peaceful Resolution delight many parents but sell poorly. Where do you think that might be happening?
In between the F and the A.
In between the F and the A. A large conglomerate buys the company. What? What?
In between the A and the 30.
You think the A and the E?
Yeah, because that's what it starts from.
It could be there, or I put it on up here because they're going to buy a profitable company. They're more likely to buy a profitable company than they are to buy in the down the dumps company. So do you think a cubic function is the best model for this scenario? Okay. What are some downfalls to the cubic function being used?
The company could go down and they make it go down and up so many times.
It can go down and up, so it may end up being more than a cubic, right? So for right now, it's modeling a cubic, but it's unrealistic to think this is always going to go up, right? At some point, we're going to turn down. Anything else? Besides the obvious, the fact that we can't have negative time. So let's use the cubic function to help estimate when she receives each profit level. Then explain your estimates. Now, things to keep a note. What does it say the profit is in over here?
Thousands.
So this means 800,000. So I want you to see if you can figure out when the time would be when each of those things happen. So if we were to look for when it turned 800,000, you can go to the 800,000 and draw a line over, and it happened here, which is just past the 4.5. So what number did you put that at?
5 and 1/4 years, so like 5 and 1/4.
Remember that these are counting that this is 4.5 right here. So it's just a little bit more than 4.5, so like 4.6 is what I put it at. Because this is where 5 is. Okay. So when did we get to 200,000? Well, I'm here, here, and here, right? So what would you call that first one? 0.5? Where would you call this next one? It's between the 1 and the 1.5. 1.25, I put it at 1.3. Because it's just a little bit more than half, but 1.25. When you're doing estimates, you're going to have a lot of numbers as long as they're close. This one is just shy of 4.5. 4.4. When is the profit greater than 200,000?
At that peak, and then,
So we're going to write the intervals for it. So greater than, does that include?
No.
Not included. So that means that it's from 0.5 until we get to 1.3. And based upon this graph, 4.4 until we get to infinity. Infinity is not realistic, but just realize that according to the graph, that's where it would be at. When is the company losing money?
The second 200 down.
So losing money means we're negative, right? So anything below the x-axis.
Wouldn't they be gaining money going up?
Yeah, at the beginning.
They're still
We're-
negative, but they're
I
still
know
up.
they're still negative, but they're gaining money as they go up.
But they are, yet they're gaining more money, but they are anything below the x-axis, they have lost money. It's a negative profit. You're in a positive increase, you're having a positive rate of change. I get where you're saying, you're thinking of like making less than the previous year. They're talking about losing as in having a negative profit. That is a good question because it can have both connotations. So they're meaning negative profit. And so that's happening from 1.75 until we get to 4.25. And where else? Where else were they negative? Right there, right? From 0 until we get to, that looks like a little bit less than halfway across that, so 0.2. When's the company making profit? Anytime above the line. So we're making profit from 0.2 until 1.75. And from 4.25 to get to positive infinity. So we're making profit in all of those regions. So Costas says that she's making profit after 3.5 years because it's increasing. But is she still in a negative value? Yes. And so technically she's not making profit until she's over that line. She has to be over this before she's making profit. She's improving. But not profitable until 4.25 years. So she's improving, she's increasing like you were talking about, but she's not really gaining profit until the end. So let's talk about her rate of change. And let's talk about our rate of change in that region here from that 3.25 to 4.25. What would you call her profit for thousands of dollars here? What's halfway between negative 400 and negative 800? Negative 600. And so here, f of 4.25 is 0. So we're going to find our slope, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. y2 minus y1, that's going to be the furthest out, 0 minus a negative 600 divided by x2, which is 4.25, minus 3.25. Minus a negative becomes a so that's going to be a positive 600 divided by 4.25 minus 3.25. And so that's going to give us 600. So what is her rate of change for a profit in that time frame? Well, it's 600. Well, 600 is in thousands of dollars. So that's $600,000 per year. She's gaining by $600,000 per year. Why is it 600,000, not 600 per year?
Because that's how they do things.
Profit. Why do you think it's positive rate of change in that time period? How would you describe the graph?
It's going up.
The graph is increasing. So positive rate change. What does the average rate of change represent, do you think?
Like her average income per year.
Her average income per year? Does everybody agree? Kinda. It's like her average, because income is not taking into account the cost. It's just what comes in. So it's her average profit. So you want to make sure to use that extra word, that word change. But it's only over that time interval from 3.25 years to 4.25 years. That, in other words, it's not for any interval but here. Because if you look at anything else, it may have a different rate of change. So it's that interval from that spot to that spot. So I want y'all to look and see if you can find the profit from 1 to 3. What is her profit in that time frame? So at 3, we were at roughly a negative 600. At 1, we were at roughly halfway between those two, so about 300. Divided by 3 minus 1. So negative 900 divided by 2, which is negative 450. And so that's going to make it a rate of change of negative 450,000 per year. So Sam looks at it and he says, okay, up from this year, we gained 300,000. For this time period, we lost 300,000. So that means the rate of change of that interval is roughly 0. So let's see if he is right. So at 2.25, what is the Y value approximately? I would call it negative 200. At f of 1, what is the Y value?
225.
I put it at 250, or a positive 250. It's halfway between those two. And this is 200. Oh, halfway between those two is not 200. It's 300, isn't it? Sorry.
Same thing
With the other one, it's
it's in the question.
negative 300. It tells us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So over that time frame, we went from positive to negative, and it's saying that, okay, this was the negative, the positive 300,000. This is the negative 300,000. So we're going to do Y2, which is negative 300,000, minus Y1, 300,000. 2.25 minus 1. So negative 600,000 divided by 1.25. So that'd be a negative, what? Negative 600 divided by 1.25.
Negative 480.
Is that a 4.25 or 1.25?
That's a 1. So do you think it's possible to have a rate of change of 0?
Maybe, if it's like a,
If it's like straight across.
So you think if it's like this, the rate of change would be 0?
only if it's like that.
What about if we get back to that same height? Would that be, if I did it from 1.25 to 1.75? What would the rate of change be over that interval? So f of 1.75 is 0. F of 0.25 is 0. So my rate of change in the top, so my slope would be 0 minus 0 divided by 1.75 minus 0.25. So 0 divided by 1.5 is going to be a 0 slope. So in order for it to have a 0 slope, it has to be at the same height it originated at. After 4.5 years, is her company successful?
Yes,
Yeah.
Why?
because their profits going up.
His profits going up. I want you to, for homework, do talk the talk. And you're going to turn it in tomorrow. I'm not going to be in y'all's class tomorrow. Y'all will turn this in to the box tomorrow when you come in.
Are we doing Matthew or informative?
Mathia. Because it seems to work better than informative. That way, if there's problems, it seems to have help.